Hi there, Mini owners. Today in your 2019 Mini Cooper S, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install Blue Ox's diode wiring kit. Our Blue Ox diode wiring kit will take all the lighting signals from your motorhome and transfer them to the lights here at the back of your vehicle. This will allow people behind you to know your intentions when going down the road. And the purpose of the diodes is to allow those signals to route here to our light to illuminate the light, but it acts as a one-way check valve that prevents that current that's flowing from the motorhome from backfeeding into the circuitry on our vehicle and causing any damage to it. This is my favorite option for setting up a flat tow, is to use a diode setup. This way all of your components are permanently mounted inside the vehicle. Everything's hidden inside the vehicle, so you'll never really even know that it's there. And you get a connector at the front that you can just simply plug into to quickly hook up your motorhome. There are some other options out there to get lights here at the back of your vehicle, just like this, but some of those other options, to me, they're more work, and I don't like the way how they last in comparison. You have your bulb and socket kit, which nowadays often doesn't even work in many of the modern taillight assemblies due to them being LED. There's just not room in there to add an additional bulb. You also have to drill a hole into your taillight assembly to add that bulb, and that's just, to me, a location for future leaks. So I really like the diodes. It keeps your housing nice and safe. You're just tapping into the wiring. Now, some people like the bulb and socket because they don't have to touch the wiring, so it helps prevent any kind of warranty issue with wiring related concerns. But again, you are likely going to potentially damage your housing doing that, so I don't really prefer that one. The other option is magnetic lights, in which case you would pull those out and they would just kind of magnet to the roof or the side of your vehicle wherever you have a magnetic surface, and you run the cable up to the front to plug into your motorhome. And those are great for if you got multiple vehicles, so you can just move it around, or if it's just like a temporary thing, maybe you're just renting or borrowing it from somebody and you need it for a quick trip, those work out really well. But if you do this all the time, every single time you want to hook up and unhook, you have to pull those out and route that wire and then bundle it all back up. It becomes more work in the long run rather than just installing these right out the gate. Now, Blue Ox's work very similar to Roadmasters. In my opinion, I personally like Roadmasters over Blue Ox's because they come with a nice heat sink on them to help dissipate heat to ensure that those diodes don't overheat. But we haven't had any issues with the Blue Ox here, so they seem to work just as well. But if I had an option, I would probably go with the Roadmaster. We'll begin our installation here at the back of the vehicle. We've got the lift gate open, and you can see inside the back here. We'll access the rear of our tail lights by removing the cover. Access cover is located right there. It's going to be the same on the opposite side. To pull it, it just pulls right off of there, so just pull that out of there. That'll allow you to access the wiring for your taillight assembly. Now, you're not going to be able to see it in here. You'll have to feel for it, but there is a connector on the back side of our light assembly. You're just going to reach your hand in there. You're going to have to reach around, press in on the release tab located right there, and then just pull it out. It's pretty much in, back, it's about right there. So that's where you need the angle you need to go to get to it. You'll know you got the right connector. If it's a 6-pin connector, there may only be 5 wires in your connector though, depending on the options you have. Ours only has 5, but it is possible, depending on options, to have 6. So, but the connector will look the same regardless. You'll see here that one of our pins just is empty, and yours may be the same way. The empty pin is pin number 1. There's numbers written on the back of the connector so you can identify which pin number they are. The pins we are concerned with are pins 5 and 6. Those are going to be our stop turn and our tail light circuits. So we're going to take some of this fabric here that's on our lights and kind of just on our wiring here and just kind of peel it off. Once we get a little bit peeled back there, you can just cut it, and then you can peel it off enough to allow you to be able to work on the wiring here. So we're just getting some of that out of the way. All right, that's out of the way. The little piece that's up here, you can leave this here, it's fine. It's actually a good spot to let you know you probably don't want to cut any closer than that anyway. So pins 5 and 6 are the ones we're concerned with. So on the driver's side here, pin 5 is going to be this gray one with the violet stripe, and pin 6 is going to be the black one with the yellow wire. So we're going to take the black and yellow, the gray and violet, separate those from the rest. Once we've got them separated, we're just going to cut both of those circuits. Once you've got both of the circuits cut, you're going to strip back each end of the wires that you had just cut. All right, now we've got all the wires cut. These are the diodes that come in your kit, and these are the spade terminals that will connect to the diode. We're going to use these spade terminals on our wires here. So each one of these wires that we just cut and stripped, I like to twist them first just to prevent stray strands from not going into the terminal. Helps all the strands slide in easier. And then each and every one of these wires that we just cut here and stripped is going to get one of those blue spade terminals attached to it. We got them all twisted, spade terminal there, slide it over the wire and crimp it down. And just rinse and repeat. All right, we've got our last one here. Get it crimped into place. And there it is. We'll now just take our diodes and plug them in. The out is always going to go towards the connector side. So we'll plug in the single pin because the single side's always the outside. The inside is a dual. We're just going to plug our wire back in there, so matching the colors up. So the gray and violet here is on each side of the diode. Our other diode we're going to plug in the same way. And of course this one's going to get a wire on each side of matching color. All right, so now that we've got our connections made there, we now need to start hooking up the wiring that comes in our kit to it. So you can see we've got this 4 flat here. You do get some additional wire to make a jump across the other side, but honestly, we should have plenty here in this bundle to where we shouldn't even really need this. If I need it, we'll use it, but otherwise, we can just set that aside. So we'll just get this undone, and we're gonna take each of these wires here that are together, and we're going to separate those. So we've got white, brown, yellow, and green. We're going to separate each one. I often use a part of the white wire here to make my jumper from one side to the other for the taillight circuit. We do get additional wire with this, so we might as well use it, but you do get plenty in just this harness to where you could use that, because you might want to use that other wire over there for some other component in your flat toe setup, so it could be worth saving. So anyway, we're going to separate all those out. The green one, that's for the passenger side, so we're going to pull that one off a little bit further because we're not going to use it until we get over there. But our yellow, brown, and white, really again, the white we don't even really need right now either. This is our ground circuit. We can get a ground anywhere we want. So that's why normally I use the white as part of a jumper, because we can ground it at any point. We can go ahead and hook up the ground when we're back here. We'll take a look and see what it's like. I may end up opting to put the ground in a different location than inside here. We'll just have to see. I actually think the passenger side is probably going to be the most ideal place for me to place my ground circuit. So we'll probably peel that back, and we're probably going to put it over there. So the main focus here is the yellow and the brown. The yellow circuit is our stop and turn circuit for the driver's side of the left side, and the brown wire is the taillight circuit. On our wiring over here, pin 5 is going to be our taillight circuit, and pin 6 is our stop turn circuit. So pin 5 is the gray violet, that's tail, and black and yellow is going to be stop turn. So now that we know what those are for, we can strip these back. Now the yellow one, just going to get a spade terminal. Slide that guy on there and crimp it down. Our brown circuit here for the taillights, when we turn the taillights on, we want both the driver and passenger side taillight to illuminate. So those actually need to be connected together so they both operate off the same circuit. So this is where a lot of times I use some of the white wire to make my jumper, but since we do have color matched wire here, we might as well use the color match. It can be useful for down the road if you forget what you did, 5-10 years down the road, then you got an issue you gotta potentially resolve. Having the wire colors match can make it a little easier, especially if you're not the one working on it. If you send it to a shop, the color coding can help them out as well. So we'll go ahead and use some of the brown. We're going to strip it back. And now we're going to attach this brown to the other brown off of our main harness. Just twist those together. And then take one of your spade terminals and slide it on there. You might have to twist the spade terminal a little bit to get it to slide on there. since it's twice as thick now that we've put 2 wires together. And then that'll just crimp on there. All right, now we can just plug these in. So pin 5, gray and violet, was the taillight circuit. So we only got 1 pin left on this diode. Brown wire is going to plug into that. On our pin 6, the black and yellow, it's our stop turn for the left side. It's going to get our yellow wire. That plugs into the only remaining pin. All right, so that's pretty much it for the driver's side. We're going to be doing basically the exact same thing over on the passenger side. We can plug this connector back in. Put the feel around for the slot and plug it in. Flip it over if it doesn't go in easily, because you probably got it backwards. There we go, and that plugs in. Now to get our wire over to the passenger side, we're actually going to just go underneath this flooring here. So just move some stuff out of the way. And we'll lift up on that. There's actually another flooring below this. Just pick up that other flooring and set that out of the way as well. And this way our wire, we can kind of poke it down and come out of the carpet there. I'm going to use a piece of fish wire to help me do that. So now we can take our wiring. I went ahead and passed the fish wire down. I just pushed it down and pulled it out here on the bottom. This way we can attach our wiring to it to pull it through. So we're just going to take the end of our wire here. So we got our 4 flat end. Don't forget your brown wire. You're going to need that. We're going to be running that through. So grab the other end of the brown wire. And now, since we want the white and the green wire to go to the other side, just peel it on back. That looks like that's probably long enough to get over there. If we need to peel back more later, we can peel back more later. So also take that green and white wire, all those. We'll use some electrical tape now to attach it to the fish wire that we ran. And I like to make sure I tape it all the way up across the top. That way none of those wires that are there get caught on anything as you're trying to pull it through. Kind of makes a nice little taper. And then we're just going to pull our fish wire until it comes through. You might have to kind of assist feeding it a little bit. There we go. Got that through. We're going to go ahead and undo our tape and then get all the wires kind of pulled through. I recommend starting with your main 4 flat one and then pulling the other ones after that. Save your fish wire because we're going to need it again over here on the other side to pull wires up behind the assembly over there. All right, so we've got it all pulled through. Here's the big bundle of the 4 wires that are together. You can see we got our white and our green that are branching off of those. We did stretch them out just a little bit further. And then we've got our single brown that we had added to the other brown one to make our jumper to this side. So these 3 wires need to go across behind the assembly so we can get all the necessary signals back there. So we're going to take these. Your brown's probably quite a bit longer. It's okay. Found it easier when you pull them through if you keep the ends close together like that. I already fed this one. Just drop it down and pull it out of there. And then we can attach these wires to it. And when we give that a little pull, we can bring all those up. Again, we're going to separate it from here and then pull up any kind of slack we got, primarily with our brown wire there. I'm sure we're going to have quite a bit of slack. All right, so over here on the passenger side, we got the wires pulled up here. I went ahead and put the cover back down so I got some place to hold my tools. We went ahead and wired in the diodes. It's basically exactly the same on this side. You want pins 5 and 6. And again, they are labeled. The color does change. 6 is still going to be black with a yellow stripe, but pin 5 is going to change to gray with a yellow stripe. But it's still the same pin numbers, just different colors over here. So we cut them and installed it the exact same way. We got that all hooked up. We're ready to roll. Now we're going to take our green and our brown wire here and get those hooked up. So we got quite a bit of excess here on the green that we don't need. So I do like to leave still a good amount just so we can easily pull these things out and stuff like that and access them. So I'm thinking something like that's probably a pretty good amount. And then we're just going to match that with our brown. We'll then strip back both of these and put a blue spade terminal on these. All right, so we're good to go there. We know that pin 6 is the stop turn, black and yellow, so we'll plug our green in there because that's passenger side stop turn. And we know pin 5 is our tail lights, gray and yellow, so our brown wire here plugs into that one. All right, we got those connections made. We can plug this connector back in. All right, now our white wire here just needs to get ground. We're actually gonna get ground right here from this module. I've already tested, that's a nice good ground. I was using it to test the lights, they all worked out great. So that's a nice little screw head right there that we can utilize. We'll just pop that off with a 10mm socket or wrench here. All right, so we got the nut off of there. We're just gonna trim this to length. Again, I like to leave a little excess. That's probably pretty good. Strip back our wire here. Once we've got that stripped, we're gonna put the ring terminal on it that comes in your kit. Slide right on there, and then you can crimp that down. Then we'll just slide it onto the stud and reinstall our nut. All right, that's a nice solid ground for us. Everything should be good to go there. At this point, we're gonna take the remaining wire that we've got that's underneath our panel here, and we're gonna route that to the front of the vehicle so we can go into our 6-way connector that we're gonna be mounting up there at the front. So there's a grommet located right here. That's where we're gonna be pushing our wires out of. I'm also gonna take these wires that are running across just to hide them some, just kind of poke it underneath that panel there. That'll kind of hide everything that's running across from side to side. So we're gonna use a 9/16 drill bit to drill out the hole in the grommet. All right, now we've got that drilled out. You won't be able to see all the way to the ground because there is like an undershield under there. But we can still poke our wire down through the hole. You don't have to poke it all in, just poke enough to where when we head underneath to pull that shield off, we can grab our wire and pull the rest through. Or you could feed it all through now, it's all up to you. And we're just gonna fill this up with silicone now. And put it on both sides. And that'll seal all that up. Now we'll head down below. All right, so we're now underneath, and your wiring is going to be located underneath this panel right here where we just poked it down through the grommet. So we'll have to pull this panel down. There's 2 fasteners here at the back. We'll use an 8mm socket to remove these 2. We're then going to switch over to a 10mm socket, and you're likely going to need an extension as well, because the other ones are going to be located around the sides, pretty much at the corners. And these are going to be a plastic nut. And those will just zip right off of there. Sometimes these plastic nuts don't like to come off when you're pulling them down, so sometimes you got to pull down on the panel just a little bit to give it a little pressure behind it to guide it off. The only other one I see is over here on this side, so it looks like there was 3 plastic nuts and 2 bolts at the back. That looks like that was not everything. So this should pull down now. I have to flex it in a little bit to get it by those pieces. And there's our box of wire right there. So we'll reinstall this after we get our wire routed. At this point, I'm going to route the wire up to the front of the vehicle, and then I'll show you the path I took to get it there. So here we are underneath. There's our wiring. I already routed it, and after I routed it, I did come back and double up on the silicone there to make sure we don't have any leaks. From there, we just go forward, factory wiring there. So we want to try to always go near the factory wiring because we know it's already routed in a way it's going to avoid any moving components like our suspension here and anything excessively hot like our exhaust. So we go up by that wiring, attach it to that wiring, go across the brace that's here where the steering the sway bar is, just kind of go across the top of all that. From there, it does kind of come down the side of the fuel tank, and we do just kind of stay underneath the fuel tank, heading forward. This is a vacuum line that we attached it to here. I recommend that over the fuel line. So we did the vacuum line, and then we just kind of stay above the covering here going all the way forward. I just poked it in here and just kind of poked it, just pulled it out of this point. Then I moved on to the next one, pulled it out of there, just kind of moved on, pulling it. If you need to remove a bolt along the way, you can. These are all 8mm sockets to remove them. This one I know I did have to remove, this one right here, so I could poke it above this brace. And then I just put that back in. From there, we go underneath the sway bar and the rack and pinion for the steering gear. We just go underneath that. You can actually poke it right underneath. We come out here, we cable tie it across the brace running along the bottom here. Just head right underneath, poked it through there, went up, attached it to the base plate, and then ran it across to where we're going to eventually put our 6-way wiring. Now, at this point, I'd recommend that you hold off on finishing up your install here. You might notice that our fascia is gone because we just put the base plate on. That's the best time to do the rest of your flat toe stuff, is when you got that fascia off. So we're doing our diode wiring now. But before we put our 6-way connector on, we're going to want to finish all this, the rest of our components up, so we can get our fascia back on, so we know what we'll need to cut out in order to install that. So we're going to come back to install our 6-pole up here once we get the fascia back on. So here we are, we got our fascia back installed, we pulled our wiring through, so now we got to finish up getting this all connected to our 6-way connector here. So we got some excess here that we can trim off. We don't need to have this much. I always like to leave just a little bit though to make things easier to work with, so we'll trim it off to maybe about here. And that additional red wire that you see there is for a battery charge line kit. We're going to hook that up today as well, but that does not come included in your diode wiring. It's an additional accessory that you can get here at eTrailer to trickle charge your battery when you're hooked up to your motorhome, so you can guarantee it'll start when you get to your destination. So kind of like what we did at the back, we are going to trim between each one of these, so we can separate each one of those out. And then we're going to strip back every one of those wires. I also took on my 6-way connector we're going to be mounting here. There's a rubber dust boot that's on it. I slid that over as well, because if you got to hook your wires up and don't have that on there, you'll have to disconnect your wires to slide it over them. So don't forget to slide that on first. All right, so now that we got them all stripped, we need to hook them up to the back of our switch here. Each of these is going to have a little set screw that's going to hold it in place. I like to start with the ground circuit, and each one is going to have a little label on it, a couple of letters. So GD is ground. That's right there. That's where we're going to start. So we're going to unscrew that, because we need to hook up ground in our system, which is actually the white wire that we had stripped back down there. So that's for our white wire. We're just going to move our way around now. Next is LT. That's left turn. We're going to use that. That's our yellow wire. Next is RT, that's right turn. We're going to use that as our green circuit. Next is S. We're actually going to skip that. We won't utilize that one. After that one, we have TM, which is for our taillight circuit. That's our brown wire. We're going to use that one. And then if you are installing a charge line kit, we would want to hook that up as well. We're going to hook that to our center pin. So now we've got all of the circuits exposed. We're just going to go back to ground, because I always like to start with that one. So we'll just switch it around till we see the GD, and then we're poking our white wire into there, and then we'll tighten down our set screw. Make sure that you don't have any stray strands sticking out. All the strands are down in the hole. And then you also want to make sure that your set screw that you're tightening down is tightening onto the wires and not onto the sheathing around the wire. All right, so we've got that in there, and we're just going to again, just move it in a circle. So next was LT, left turn. That's going to be our yellow circuit. Hook that one in there. Next is RT, it's right turn. So it's our green circuit. And then that's going to be our brown, but it's harder to get to the center pin. So we're going to put the center pin in first before we do the brown. So if you did have a charge line, this is where it would go. And then lastly, we'll poke in our ground wire, our taillight wire into the one labeled TM. And it looks like we dropped the screw, so we're gonna have to grab the screw off the floor there and screw it back in, but then we'll be right back here with you. All right, then we're gonna grab some dielectric grease, and we're just gonna be real aggressive with it, fully coat up all the way around. We wanna make sure we seal all that up. We don't want any dirt, debris, or moisture getting in there. And now we can take our dust boot here, slide that back down over our circuits. And then I like to take some electrical tape and put it around my dust boot to help ensure the dust boot doesn't slide off of there. So now we'll just take our switch, line up our self tappers. Those came with our base plate and they're gonna run right into the attachment on our base plate. We'll use an 8mm to tighten them down. Now that we've got our connector all hooked up, we just plugged it into the back of our motorhome here, and we want to verify that all the lighting signals work properly. I am going to turn the motorhome on just so we can ensure all the lighting signals are going to function. So I'm going to turn my tail lights on there. You should see our tail lights, left turn signal, with all of our signals working properly, we're ready to hook up to our motorhome, put it into flat toe, and hit the road. And that completes our installation of Blue Ox's diode wiring kit on our 2019 Mini Cooper S.